What's up, everybody? How's it going? Good morning. This is not a normal time for me to stream. And actually, now that I've kind of interrupted my normal schedule, I kind of forgot to blast this all over Twitter. So um, if you go on my Twitter, go ahead and retweet my original thing for this. But I'm just going to keep going because I got a schedule I got to keep to. So, well, first, yes, that's right. Argentina world champ, baby. That was a fun one to watch. But let's see. So yeah, it's been a while since I've streamed, and I'm glad to be back hanging out with you all at this atypical time for me to be streaming. But hey, I'm on vacation and I wanted to fit a stream in, so it hadn't been too long. Let's go ahead and say hi in the chat. Yes, that is an AI generated picture. I got a bunch of them, in line. Hot Rollins, what's up, boy? Sparky, good to see you, man. Old Dog Tricks, good morning. G Chambers, good to see you. Dusty, what's up, buddy? Hex Pimp, hey, Red Squirrel, what's up, fellow guild member? Good to see you. Tom, Fish, good to see everybody. Pulse Hexing, great to see you. All right, everybody, so just sit back and relax. I'm not going to turn my camera on for this one. I'm using my laptop in an area where the Wi-Fi is not like the best, so I'm just going to try to keep it keep the output pretty simple so that the viewing quality is as good as possible. You can hear me and whatnot. But today, essentially, what I'm going to be doing is just going over some stats in the IcosaHedron system. I figured, it's been, ICOSA's come out, the auctions have started, and not only that, but we've had a solid, about 3 months now of data to be able to analyze. And so every once in a while, probably once a quarter, or at least every time something interesting happens and I feel like there's something to report with the data, if there's a change, I'll come on and do a quick stream just reviewing everything. Yeah. And at the end, I'm going to be keeping the stream probably to about an hour at most. So if you have any questions, just throw them in the chat and I'll star them as I see them. But yeah, we'll just dig right into it. What do you guys say? Okay. So first thing I want to look at. Everything that I'm pulling here is from hexmodel.com. Great site by your boy, Dev Huey. I would definitely go check it out. And actually, when I'm done with this, I'm going to put his Twitter and his Twitter in the description. And I'm also going to put the site in the description too. But it's just hexmodel.com. It has all of these awesome stats. And I'm just going to be going through and breaking down different time points within the system as far as it's so far existed. And yeah, we'll go from there. So Hedron stats, day 1 through, actually, I forgot to edit this title. I made it previously, but this is 1 through 296. Did I do that? No, I think I should be good. All right, so 1 through day 296, which is essentially the current day, yesterday. And from that, we're going to get a graph of the Hedron minted, the amount of Hedron burned, and we'll get the sum of all those numbers, the Hedron minted, the Hedron burned, and the Hedron loaned within that specific period of time. And so I want to first look at what I consider the first epoch of Hedron in this case, which is the pre-Icosa. So this is all of the data that we have within the Hedron system that existed before Icosa was launched and really even announced. And what we'll see is we're in a highly inflationary period. About 53.7 trillion Hedron was minted in this time period, and about 3.47 trillion was burned. And as you know, that 3.47 trillion was due to the OA. So you see it's really 3 large burning events and then 1 small burning event right here that contributed to this entire Hedron burning. And that was the original seeding liquidity for the entire system. So the base APR that we get every single day paid out in Icosa is from this Hedron being burned. Now, none of this burning was due to any kind of auctions, or no significant amount of this burning was due to any auctions because there really wasn't much going on. As well as you'll see that the Hedron loaned in this amount was very, very low. Probably just from the people who were trying to get HSIs on the liquidation auction just to test out the system and make sure it worked. But that leads us to, didn't change it again. Sorry, guys. Day 172 to 296. And so what this section is basically post ICOSA. I skipped 171 because that was an anomaly, an outlier in terms of like a massive spike. And so I just wanted to exclude that just to kind of get a general idea of what we can expect going into the future. But day 172, in terms of Hedron, this is pretty much when ICOSA was launched. And we'll see a change in the Hedron minting. First, it's gone down, so 53.7 trillion to 21.45 trillion. And the reason we see that is because this initial minting right here was 2 years of backlogged Hedron that needed to be minted, and that people with like a 10x bonus got to mint off the bat. And so that was like that major dumpage. We see a level off over time because people had pretty much blew their load over here. And then we see an increase in minting going into the ICOSA launch for the anticipation of it. Now we see here on average, we've cut the minting or cut the inflation rate of Hedron basically in half in the second kind of epoch of the system. And we can see that we have about 4.29 trillion Hedron burned in this time. So we're not, from this perspective and from this kind of time point, we are not deflationary quite yet, but we do have a significant amount of burning of Hedron. But we see that that burning is mostly due around this day 262, which we'll see is the ICOSA liquidation auctions going live. So that's the next kind of epoch I want to look at. And this time I changed it, 269. But from day 260, which is about when the auction started, to the current day, we have 3.9 trillion Hedron minted. So in this last 30-day period, we've had a drastic decrease in the amount of minting. And we'll see that this 4.29 trillion, about 4.26 has been burned since the start of the liquidation auctions. So that kind of shows us that we're getting all of the burning that we're getting now is from people bidding on these HSIs and burning their Hedron to get them, which is great. And what we'll see is that this decrease in minting over time, so from 21.45 trillion within this kind of 100-day, 120-day time span, and if we see that it's gone to about 3.7 trillion within this 30-day time span, the amount of inflation in Hedron is decreasing at a rapid rate. Yet now the burning of Hedron has matched it. So we're not deflationary. Within these numbers, we are deflationary. But as you see on day 262, there is this massive burning event, which is the first day of the auctions. So this is an outlier, and I'm gonna exclude this data right now, actually, just so that we can see the general trend of what's been going on. And what we see is, we're not deflationary, we're still net inflationary, but it's about by 400 billion tokens a day, which is just a crazy amount less than what we've seen before. So, really, Hedron is essentially net neutral, plus minus. It could be deflationary one day, inflationary the other day, but since the auctions have started, the Hedron supply has remained relatively flat, which is really good. A big problem or a big criticism of the Hedron system was how much inflation was being minted. And now that we can see, at least for the rate of that inflation, it's being offset by the Hedron being burned. So as of right now, Hedron is net inflationary, but by a very small margin. And the Hedron, the HSI liquidation auctions are keeping pace with the current amount of inflation, which I think is a really healthy place for it to be. And in the coming stats, in a couple minutes, we'll get to how long we can expect these HSIs to continuously be on the auction, and kind of what's our projected time frame until maybe we need another injection of liquidity or another HSI selling event. Let's see. So what's next? Okay, so that's all of the Hedron stats, basically just analyzing its inflation rate. Oh, and one other thing. A significant amount of more Hedron is being loaned within this epoch of the ICOSA being launched. Now, the price, we're in a downtrend right now, and the price is down. So advances still really aren't incentivized at this current period in time, but hopefully one day they will be once Hex starts to pump and Hedron tracks that price appreciation, we hope. All right. Also, just a reminder for new people coming in, I'm going to do a quick AMA at the end of this presentation. So go ahead and throw your questions in the chat now, and I'll be starring them as I see them. We have sorry, 1 second. And thank you for all 39 of you who are here. I appreciate you watching me. Okay, so Hedron staking. So now we've moved on from the stats and Hedron, and we're looking at the stats within the Icosa staking system, particularly the Hedron staking pool. And this is from the entire existence of Icosa. And the thing that I want to point your attention to specifically is this graph on the right here. And what this is showing is the total number of points that are within the system. And why this is important is because the greater the number the greater number of points that exist, the harder or the more competitive the pool is, i.e., the harder it is to obtain this specific mechanism of Icosa inflation. And what we see is if we fit just, eyeballing, fitting a curve onto this line, we're seeing that it has a logarithmic pattern. And what that means is at the very beginning, the rate at which the competition increased was higher than it is now. So it started off and people staked a bunch of Hedron, meaning the competition, you got, what's the word I'm looking for? You got diluted, sorry. You got diluted quickly once the Hedron pool started. And then once all of that staking has happened, then it's been a flatter line going forward. I believe this line right here, this straight up is the Godwell staking. And then this line right here, that is the poly stake. So we've seen some quick jumps in the price, in the number of points. But mostly what we're seeing is that once you obtain a specific position within the Hedron staking pool, for the most part, unless you have these kind of large staking events, these outliers right here, you're keeping that percentage of the pool. And we're going to juxtapose that with the Icosa pool in a second, but also just to take a look at the Icosa yield, we have a flat all the way until the liquidation auctions start over here, and then we get the burning of Hedron, which means the increase in Icosa yield. So all of these small bars right here is the base yield that we got from that original 3 trillion burn by the SA. And then this is also including all of the burned Hedron from the auctions. All right. So here is the Icosa staking chart, and we'll go ahead and, here's the Icosa staking data. And what you'll see from here is there's an immediate difference in the slope of the line that you would fit this data with and the slope of the line of the Hedron staking data. This is a linear line right here, in that it's pretty much just proportional, in that as time has gone on, the number of points in the system has incrementally gone up. What this means is that your ability to get diluted in the Icosa pool is greater. Your ability to get diluted is greater in the Icosa pool versus the Hedron pool. So you can obtain a Hedron staking position and be relatively assured that your position is going to be more or less the same. But in the Icosa staking position, your Icosa staking position needs to continually be added to if you want to maintain that percent of the pool. And the reason why is because we're seeing so much inflation of Icosa, and we're seeing people take some of that inflation and staking it. Now, while the Icosa pool has been less competitive than Hedron in the beginning because there was less Icosa around, as more Icosa is being introduced into the system, this curve is becoming more competitive to get these points, or at least to get a certain percent of the points. Now, why is this important? And I'm going to speculate a little bit here, but my anticipation is that as time goes on, this Icosa chart is going to start to look like this Hedron chart in terms of the total points in the system. And the reason why is because as the T-share rate goes up, and presumably as Hex price goes up, we are going to be getting less and less Icosa inflation over time. And so because we're going to get less inflation over time, that's less ICOSA to be staked in these pools, which means the number of points is slowly going to curve to a flat rate, asymptotic to some specific level. Also, you have to keep in mind that as the T-share rate goes up, the same number of coins get fewer number of points. So naturally, this is going to taper off, even if we consider the slope is going to decrease as we as that T-share rate increases, because our ability to get these points is just harder. So what this is telling me is that now we are in a hyperinflationary period of ICOSA. Before we were in a hyperinflationary period of Hedron. Now that's tapered off a lot from the data I just showed you back here. But now we're in a hyperinflationary period of ICOSA. So for those of you that are long-term believers in the system and want to obtain a certain percentage of the ICOSA staking pool inflation, now really is the time to obtain it, because the price is low and the competition is getting harder. So you can get more coins now, and you're increasing the competition of the pool faster by staking that inflation. Because theoretically, this inflation won't be around forever. That means the inflation that you're obtaining now and the percent of the inflation you're getting in the future is going to be locked, because so much inflation exists today. I hope that made sense. Long story short, you can lock a position in the Hedron staking pool now, but you're going to have to compete a bit to maintain a position in the ICOSA staking pool. For long-term believers, that's not a problem. That's just an indicator to accumulate and stake. But for people who are less confident in the system, stick with your freebie Hedron staking, because there's less competition there and there's less risk there. Staking in the ICOSA pool has more risk because you're obtaining another token and you're putting in new capital if you're buying the inflation off the market. Obviously, as stakes come out, you can compound your yield, and that'll help you keep pace with everybody else as well. All right, Whatses. Everybody likes Whatses. We got some cool art in the pipeline being spearheaded by Jawa, so keep an eye out for that. I'm excited for when that comes out, and it shouldn't be too much longer now. So that's something to look forward to and to be excited about. There really isn't much to say on the Whatsa pool. I forgot to pull out the number of Whatsas burned, but for that, just go to Dev Huey's Twitter. I believe it. We've gotten a couple hundred burned. We've definitely dropped from the 22,000 to the 21,000. The number of Whatsa NFTs that exist. So people are burning them, and if from what I recall, it's about like 1 to 5 a day. So it's really nothing significant. And because the ICOSA price has gone down. And because the price of ICOSA has been going down, it's taking more ICOSA to reach the break-even point, which means the incentivization to burn it for the underlying ICOSA yield is greatly diminished. It's just better to buy it off the market. And as well, there's an interesting dynamic with the OpenSea, the secondary market, with how much they're going for there. So we'll get into that in a second. But first, let's look at this ICOSA total yield. And this is just tracking the total amount of ICOSA that's been paid out to the pool over time. So it's additive. Now, around here, this is about when the HSI auctions went live. And so what you'll see is there is a curve, a straight line, a linear line that has been increasing at this specific slope. And then afterwards, once we got the burning of Hedron, that slope has drastically increased. And you've seen this in your Whatsapp payouts. The amount that you've been paid out every single day has increased drastically since the auctions have began. And this seems to just continue to go up. I imagine at some point it's going to curve out based on the T-share rate going up. And if the price of Hedron is going up, then there's less Hedron being burned for the auctions. But for now, the ICOSA yield in these Whatsas has basically just skyrocketed in an up and to the right direction. So that's pretty exciting. If you look here, for a $1,000 NFT, about 1 billion points, you've yielded 1,254 ICOSA. And so if ICOSA was at $1, you would be up 25%, but it's not at $1, so we're still not at the break-even point. And you'll see that same slope pattern going from like a steady upwards to kind of a more violent upwards in the total yield, because these are basically the same metrics. But yeah, long story short, Whatses are generating a lot of yield right now. And as the number that gets burned increases, your percentage of this increasing yield is going to increase as well. Now, I pulled some of the activity, some volume from OpenSea, and what I wanted to show you here was the premium that Whatses are going for on the secondary market. And for those of you that don't know, 1 million points equates to $1 of minting, $1 at the time of minting these Whatses. So a 250 M point Whatsa is a $250 mint. And you'll see that this is going for $500 right now. 33.9 going for 150. $1,000 going for $2,000, and $55 going for $169. And these are things that have already sold. So this is data. These are sales that have actually happened. And so on average, we're seeing Whatses go for 2 to 3x their minting price. You know, if you watch my stream with RH Max, I said, you know, it looks like for at least this point in time, the winners of the Icosa launch were the Whatsa minters, because they still have a pretty solid 2 to 3x on the money that they, on the money that they put in. Now, what this means for this chart, or more specifically, the number of Whatsas burned, is that we're probably not going to get a lot burned. People who want to exit from their Whatsas will more than likely go to the secondary market, because they're getting a 2 to 3x, versus here they're not even breaking even. So they can get a 2 to 3x on the secondary market, yet here they're not even breaking even. Therefore, they're going to go to the secondary market. Pretty straightforward. So I wouldn't really expect any major Whatsa burning until we see this dynamic flip, where the underlying Icosa is worth more than the average price, the average multiples you can get from OpenSea. So that's something to keep in mind, and that'll be something cool to correlate if we see that flip, and then we start to see a lot of Whatsas burning. Okay, so that's Whatsa. Let's talk about T-shares up for liquidation. So this is an analysis based on the number of T-shares and the number of HSIs on the liquidation auction, and using this data to kind of project into the future how long we can expect a significant amount of volume to be moving through these liquidation auctions. And so this first set over here, I pulled from Hex Model the amount of T-shares that will be coming out on these specific days. So from January 1st to January 12th, right here is the number of T-shares that will be entering the liquidation auction on that specific day. And so really there were HSIs that were sold 90 days previously. Now, what this number is here, this 456, is the total number of HSIs within this 12-day period. So we have 456 HSIs coming out with a total of 3,004 T-shares. Now, this is only a 12-month snapshot, and I just wanted to give a quick snapshot because you can then extrapolate this going into the future. But if we look, we have a backlog of HSIs as of yesterday on the liquidation auction, which means there are 4,976 HSIs whose auctions haven't even been started. Presumably, some of them probably still there from day one. Now, there are a lot of undesirable ones, like a couple hundred B shares, maybe even 10 to 20 B shares that people just aren't starting. And maybe we can account for half of the liquidations, half of these HSIs being of that low quality type. But if we assume it's half, and we assume the other half are some that have at least some value that people will slowly be trickling out over time, that's still almost 2,500 HSIs that are backlogged. And within this 12-day period, we're adding 400 more on top of that. Now, the last time I checked, about 30 to 40 HSIs are going on. 30 to 40 auctions are live at any given time before people start to start some more. And so we're really slowly working through this backlog right now. And it doesn't seem as if the backlog is going to get any shorter. In fact, the rate at which we're adding stakes is outpacing the rate at which we're liquidating stakes. So the volume within the HSI liquidation auction is very, very healthy, in my opinion. And not only that, but this on the bottom right side, new HSI sold within the past about 8 days. We are still having hundreds of T-shares being sold on a daily basis to the HSI liquidation auction. So even 90 days from today, we're still getting, 200, 128, 559, 1.4 thousand T-shares added to this backlog of HSIs. And, that's 3 months from now. That's in March is when all of these are going to be ended, have the ability to be started. So I think the liquidation auction is in a very healthy place where we have a ton of volume and we can anticipate a solid and consistent amount of yield coming out from the liquidation auction for at the minimum 3 months, because we're having HSI still being sold. But I would be comfortable saying that we could even project 6 months out because of this big backlog, where even if these new HSIs, which they have, like you'll notice that, we have some days with very little T-shares being sold, especially compared to what's coming out in the coming weeks. But where was I going with that? But I would be comfortable projecting even 6 months of consistent volume before we really need to look at the health of the volume of HSIs, before we look at the health of the volume of HSIs coming out and seeing if that's going to have a big impact on the system and the yield of the system. Okay. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, please. The ICOSA price. It has not been looking good. We are down a significant amount. That's no secret. And yeah, I'm going to talk about it a little bit because there are reasons why this is happening. And in fact, this is exactly how the system is designed to run. The way I see it, ICOSA right now is absorbing some of the negative externalities of Hedron. And the specific negative externality is a large supply or a large inflation rate. And so what ICOSA is doing is that it is churning through Hedron by burning it, but by burning that Hedron, it's introducing ICOSA inflation, and it's introducing it in a way that that incentivizes people to dump it on the market. Now, the interesting thing, and I'll get into the specifics of that in a second, but the interesting thing about that is when the incentive exists to dump that newly inflated ICOSA on the market, it produces another iteration of Hedron burning. And this will continue to happen until the ICOSA price gets so low that that incentive no longer exists. And so I'm going to illustrate kind of that incentive structure right here with these 3 lines. So I have 3 lines, which is the cost to make a stake, the ICOSA market price, and the Hedron bid, the value of the Hedron bid relative. The value of the Hedron bid that presumably wins it for the liquidation auction. Just tagging some questions, and yeah, keep dropping questions in there if you got any questions, and I'll answer it after I'm done with the presentation. So let's look at this specific situation where the Hedron bid is less than the ICOSA market price, i.e. the price, like if ICOSA was $1, and the Hedron bid was like 50 cents if you only got 1 ICOSA from it. But the cost to make a stake and the ICOSA market price is the same. Now, interestingly enough, when the ICOSA market price and the cost to make the stake is the same, this is when ICOSA is at its ceiling price. And so when this is the case, ICOSA price is high, or at least as high as it's going to go, and the Hedron bid in this scenario is less than the ICOSA market price. Now, what this red line here is the delta between the Hedron bid and the ICOSA market price, i.e., it is the amount of profit that this bidder is making. So say the ICOSA market price for this HSI means that the ICOSA is worth $1,000, and this person is winning that stake for $500 worth of Hedron. Well, if they resell that HSI to the ICOSA contract and sell that ICOSA on the market, then what happens is they profit $500. And this is the incentivization. This is the incentive model that the system presents when the ICOSA price is high, and the one that I was talking about previously that incentivizes people to immediately dump that ICOSA. Now, in order to do that, they have to re-put that HSI on the liquidation auction. So in 90 days, it's going to result in more Hedron being burned. But in the immediate, in the present, it ends up with ICOSA dumping because people are dumping it for an immediate arbitrage profit. Okay. Now let's look at the second scenario that occurs, presumably after this first scenario. So the person got their $500 of profit and they've sold the ICOSA market price down. So this is a little bit more of a reflection of where we're at right now, where the ICOSA market price is under the cost to make a stake. So we're under the ceiling price. And so because we're under the ceiling price, it is still possible for this same bid to get a deal relative to what they could sell it for on the market. However, it's less because the ICOSA price is less. Now, the deal that they get relative to the cost to make the stake is greater. And right now, it's equivalent to what it was before when the price was at the ceiling price. So what this diagram is essentially showing is that as the ICOSA market price goes down, the amount of opportunity to get an immediate profit on an HSI bid is decreasing because it takes less of a bid to get past this ICOSA market price than before. Excuse me for 1 second. Sorry. Okay. Now, this will continue to happen as long as this dumping of the ICOSA price is going to continue to happen until this profit right here goes away. And that's what this situation, this scenario outlines. People have dumped the ICOSA market so much because they're recycling HSIs because they're profiting from arbitrage. They've dumped it so much that the price is now below what anybody would reasonably bid for it relative to that price. And the reason why no one would bid for it under this market price is because that deal relative to the cost to make the stake is still there. i.e., they can still take a $500 bid and get a stake that would cost them $500 to, a stake it would cost to, let me back up. They could still make a $500 Hedron bid and get a stake that would cost them $1,000 if they bought Hex off the market and staked it for that same stake length. And so at some point, the ICOSA market price goes so low that people are no longer bidding on them to profit from the ICOSA, but to get it because they're obtaining cheaper T-shares than what is on the market. Now, this is really interesting because if we look at what drives price, supply and demand, ICOSA kind of has a built-in metric to help it form a bottom. And what I mean by that is that as the price goes down, this specific mechanism of inflation no longer exists. Decreased inflation, specifically inflation that was hitting the market, equals decreased supply. So the magnitude of the demand of the buys that exist on the ICOSA chart are increasing relative to the supply, just because we are decreasing the amount of that supply. So what that means is as ICOSA dumps, it is more likely to find a bottom because inflation is actively being turned off as the price goes down. Now, let's go down. Now, this isn't the only source of inflation. This is just one source of inflation. So it's not like a magic bullet in of itself. Like the ICOSA price goes down and inflation just turns off for good. That's not true. It's just one source of inflation. It's a significant source because all of the inflation that comes from arbitrage immediately goes on the market. So that's 100% of inflation being translated into sell pressure. All of the other forms of inflation, only 1% of them are going to end up on the, only 1% of them are going to end up as sell pressure because of recycling. So because of compounding yield. Because the areas of inflation are the Hedron stakes ending, the ICOSA stakes ending, and the Whatses burns. And so as people end their Hedron stakes, this is probably the Hedron stakes ending. This is probably the one where the most is going to end up on the being sold because you don't have to buy into ICOSA to earn ICOSA with your Hedron. You just have to be a hex staker. So people who aren't exactly invested in the system at a fundamental level and are just using it as exit liquidity will just end their Hedron stakes and just sell their ICOSA for whatever price that they get. So that's just going to be sell pressure. But there are other people like me, who have just compounded their Hedron yield. So I just took my ICOSA yield. I think I did take a little bit of profit, just to store some USDC, but the vast majority of it did go to recompounding and creating a new ICOSA stake. Now, if you have an ICOSA stake, when you end it, that's inflation. Part of it will be compounded, part of it will be sold. What's a burns? I'm not sure which. This could end up either in the staking pool or it could end up on the market. It could go either way depending on the conditions, but that's more inflation. Now, the HSI buyback mechanism really shouldn't be happening right now because not many HSIs are being sold for, not many HSIs are being liquidated for less than the ICOSA price because the price is so low. But we are still seeing, I had this slide up before, but we're still seeing a decent amount of T-shares being put through the liquidation auction today. And I believe Dev Huey, he said that there's about a 40% recycle rate. I'll have to go double check that from his Twitter, but there's a very significant recycling rate. So I bet a decent amount of these are probably recycled HSIs, even though this should really be slowing up because of the decreased ICOSA price. But it's happening, and that's some inflation, and some of that might be hitting the market. The long story short of what I'm trying to say here is that as the ICOSA price dumps, the faucet of inflation is shrinking, i.e. the amount of inflation coming out is decreasing, basically proportional to the amount of decreased price. And so that dynamic just pushes the momentum towards forming a bottom rather than, say, inflating more to make a bottom less possible to form. So I really don't know. Let's go back to the chart. I really don't know when this thing is going to bottom. It doesn't have any signs of bottoming really anytime soon. There's a big wick here, and maybe we'll get a bump, and then we'll get a double or triple bottom. But, this is still an experimental time of the ICOSA system where the data that we're getting now is going to help us model future price action. Specifically, what I'm looking for is what percent does this thing bottom from relative to the ceiling price? And that could help us form future bottoms if we ever go to the ceiling price again and we start to see a significant dumping from the ceiling price. That could help us figure out where we might see a bottom in the future. So these are the things I'm kind of looking at, but that's really all I have for you guys. I think that that covers a decent amount. I didn't cover everything necessarily, but I think I covered the things that I wanted to talk about the most. Mostly just analyzing the inflation of the system all around, because this is a model of inflation via staking. And so it's important to track where the inflation is going. But with that said, let's go ahead. And real quick, hexmodel.com. I'll just put that in the chat. Hexmodel.com. That's where I got all of it. So you can go analyze that data to your heart's content yourself. All right, go ahead and start throwing questions in the chat. I got 3 starred. I got 4 starred, and we'll just go through them individually until we're done. All right, 4 to 6 month price. Let's see. Probably still down. I know in the Discord chat that we have, Access Alive is anticipating a bottom around April and May. So maybe that's where we'll start to see a bottom. But I would be prepared for more downside price action. In crypto, it's always good to be prepared and hedge for downside because at any given point in time, you could take a 50% haircut. So just be prepared for further downside action. And I would say use this time to obtain a position of inflation in the ICOSA system. Because if the price ever goes up, it's going to be harder for new entrants or even existing stakers to compete with you for that position you're obtaining now. HSI auctions in February, we covered that. It's probably going to be about the same because we have a good backlog of HSIs. Okay. Hedron price, yeah, it's lower. One thing to keep in mind here is that the hex price is taking a pretty hard beating right now. And because the hex price determines the ceiling of all this stuff, and the ceiling can be thought of as if the ceiling is going down, it's putting pressure on Hedron and ICOSA. And so just because hex down, ICOSA and Hedron aren't really going to have true pumps until hex is showing some strength. It's just the nature of them being derived from the T-share. But yeah, now is the accumulation time. It's definitely not the mad gains time. All right. Probably lower. I would be prepared for lower Icosa prices. 15 cents is possible. That's still another 70% down-ish. I'd be prepared for it because those would be probably historic accumulating periods if you can get it at 15 cents. I know that I'm keeping dry powder aside for more downwards price action. So yeah, be prepared for it. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But yeah, I would be prepared for further downside action and look at it as long-term investing rather than short-term gains. All right. What is the function and main virtue of the buy and burn of Hedron? So there is no buy and burn. There's only burning. There is no function to buy Hedron off the market and burn it. But the burning of Hedron basically just acts as a supply sink, and it also produces yield for the Icosa staking pools, the Icosa, Whatses, and Hedron pools. All right, we got two more people. Let's see. Yeah, people don't know about the secondary market. So for those of you watching, if you're looking to exit a Whatses, do it on the secondary market because you get a better deal. If you want to benefit my bags, then go ahead and burn it. Let's see. What would make Icosa deflationary? So there is no burn mechanism for Icosa. Technically, Icosa gets burned when you stake it, but I don't really count that as burning because the tokens eventually come back into existence, kind of like hex staking. But yeah, right now there is no burn mechanism for Icosa. Kind of similar how there is no burn mechanism for hex necessarily. The thing that makes it more scarce is the T-share rate going up, and also, of course, the price going up. Yeah, so as the T-share rate goes up, it becomes harder to obtain Icosa because all of the inflation metrics for Icosa are tied to the T-share rate in a way in which that when it goes up, less Icosa gets minted. So it's like a disinflationary mechanism rather than a deflationary mechanism. So yeah, there are, as of now, there are no plans to burn Icosa. As of now, I don't think any of them are open. No one has given support to those. I know Bullish 0x, he's been trying to get support for that stuff for a while. But yeah, I think it's just going to take a community member to do it. I don't think Alex is. I don't think that's a priority on his list right now. The nice thing is none of the auctions have started, so they're just sitting there. So whenever that ability to bid on them and interact with it goes live, then they're all going to be there. Okay. Oop. Let's see. It's being a little laggy on my end. Just give it a second. Sorry, guys. My computer is being a little laggy. Let's see. Sorry, guys. Things are really glitching up on my end. I'll give it a couple more minutes to try. If not, I'll probably just end the stream there. Sorry. Stick around if you want to see me work through this lagging computer. Let's see. Let's stop sharing my screen. Okay, I think I got it. Let's see. Okay, yeah, here we go. All right, your opinion on a recent 1 trillion Hedron sale taking out liquidity from Hex. People sold and they removed USDC liquidity and the price went down because of it. That was a pretty nasty capitulation whip right there, but these are the kind of things we need to see before we hit a bottom. Large players just exiting, and we're getting that. So this is just wealth distribution of Hedron and Hex to people who are more long-term believers. So yeah, long-term, it's an opportunity. Short-term, yeah, it's causing some pain. D Hex Essentialist. Good to see you, buddy. Everybody, go check out pulsetube.com, pulsetube.io. Put it in the chat. I forgot what the ending card was. The domain name is what. Go check out PulseTube. Great website. Awesome developer. Really great resource. Let's see. There's one thing that could halt the sell-off. That's when Alex starts streaming and people become more aware of the system and the man behind it. Could be a huge fundamental. Yes, absolutely. So Alex has talked about doing a stream himself. And if he does that, that's just going to bring more attention to the system. I hope I can be honored enough to be brought on as the pulsetube.com. The pulsetube.com. There you go. ThePulseTube.com. Yeah, so go there, guys, to check out, get all the information you need about Hex, Hedron, Icosa streaming. But yeah, once I hope Alex invites me on. That'd be a fun stream to do, and it's definitely one I'm going to be tuning into a lot. Hey, no problem, man. Thanks for your viewership. Let's see. Thank you for your easy. Yeah, no problem. I hope the things that I say are making sense. I appreciate everybody who's been here. That looks like I'm at the end, so I'll give you another 10, 20 seconds to get your questions in. Oh, here we go. If you are LPing right now, would you compound the fees, keep the fees earned in their respective tokens, or sell the fees to a stablecoin? So that's an extremely personal question. That there is no one way, there is no hard and fast rule to determine that. That's a question you got to ask yourself. And here are the heuristics or the questions you would ask yourself to figure that out. So compounding fees, that is presuming that you have a longer term view on the specific liquidity position, you are opening. And so you believe you're going to stay in the range for a decent amount of time, and you want to continuously expose your coins to market volatility risk because you're keeping the coins, and impermanent loss risk. So that's probably the highest risk strategy, but your APR is going up because you're increasing your capital that you're yielding on. Keeping the fees earned in their respective token assumes that maybe you don't want to be you don't want the exposure to impermanent loss, that risk, but you do want the exposure to the coin. So say, for example, you're yielding on Hex Hedron, you believe it's bottom and it's going to go up. You want to go ahead and keep those coins because you want to capture that price appreciation. And then whatever coins you're yielding on, you're okay with experiencing permanent loss on based on their relative price dynamics. So the first one, max risk. Second one, medium risk. Third one is probably the least amount of risk in that you're still risking impermanent loss on your stake position, on your LP position, but all of the fees, you've locked in that APR. Now, if the price of those tokens go up, then yeah, you've lost out on some profit, but you have at least locked in the gains each day. But that APR isn't increasing, and you don't get upwards price appreciation, but you get downwards price appreciation. Downwards price appreciation. That's funny. Downwards price action. You're hedged against that. So yeah, those are the things I would think about when considering it. And there's nothing wrong with doing a mix. Say one day you're feeling pretty good and you're like, you know what, I want to put this back in. Do it. The next day you're like, you know what, I want USDC. I'm getting out. Do it. Just you can play it day by day. This isn't a one-time decision you have to make. All right. As a larger holder, what's the best way to protect the ecosystem? So I think the best way, the obvious way is not to sell. Like you're not putting the price down. Staking is a good way to do it because if you're someone who's not really selling and you're absorbing inflation, then you're decreasing the amount of coins that can be used as sell pressure. Also liquidity providing. So if you have a lot of Icosa, especially, and this is something that we'll start to see in the future as Icosa stakes come out, like the 6 month, 9 month, and the 1 year stakes for Hedron and Icosa come out. We might see people use that Icosa to provide liquidity. So one thing that they could do when the Icosa price is below the ceiling price is that they can put Icosa, 100% Icosa, as a single-sided position at the ceiling price. And then because the liquidity is fairly low, some of these large players have enough Hex to buy it up into their liquidity band. So they make it really thick where they want it to maintain, where they want it to stay, and then they use the low amount of liquidity getting it up there, and they just buy it up all the way. They buy it up all the way, and then now the ICOSA price has a hard time getting out of its ceiling price because so much ICOSA is set in that range. That's something a large player can do to protect the ecosystem if they wanted to try to defend the ICOSA price. By providing liquidity and providing so much that it's really hard to push it out of the ceiling price range. Let's see. Listening while working. I appreciate that, man. I hope you're having a good day at work, Bird Dog. All right, let's see. Hey, no problem. Capazzo, good to see you, sir. Hey, thank you. I appreciate that. Living on crypto. Possible lows for Hedron. So we do have a significant support around the 1,000 range. There's a lot of price action going on there. So if we're going to see a place to trade around, it's probably that 1,000 to 12,000, 1,200, 1,000 to 1,200 range. Yeah, that's a good place to look for entries. ICOSA, we don't know. There is no price action down here. So we're in free fall, and we'll just see where the market takes us. Yeah, I think Hex Model probably has that data, Mr. Capazzo. So I would look there, but I have not specifically looked. All right, guys, that is the end of the stream. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. All 81 of you. That's an amazing audience for this Monday morning, Monday afternoon now here on the East Coast. But I hope you found that information useful. A couple housekeeping things. I am going to continue to do streams. I'm definitely looking to do presentations on things outside of ICOSA and Hedron. I'm putting together a famous and fiat stream right now, and I have some other stuff in the works that I'm excited about. Oh, someone said I skipped their question. Let me see if I can find it, if they said it earlier. Okay, real quick. Will the rate of inflation ICOSA ever outweigh the gains Hex makes? So in short, won't it just be better to get Hex? That's possible. Want to be better just to get Hex? Yeah. I think it's going to be dynamic between which of the two coins produces the most yield, and essentially whichever one does, people are going to gravitate towards that. And by gravitating towards either Hex or ICOSA, that makes the other one more valuable until the valuation equilibrates. That's generally how the system works. Sorry, I missed your question there. Anyways, yeah, fiat famous overview coming up. I'm building a website where I'm taking my calculator, my Google Sheets calculator that you have. If you go on my Twitter, you'll see my links page and you can get access to it. I'm putting all of that on a website, so it's just a little easier to do, a little bit more user friendly. And normal stuff, consultations, DM me for that. And if you want access to the private Discord that me, Access Alive, and So the Antidote run, DM 0x Brennan on Twitter. I believe the link is in the description below, and we'll get you straightened out. I hope you guys have an incredible day, an incredible holiday season. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. We'll see if I stream before the new year. I'd like to, but I don't have any plans right now. So if I don't, have a great time. Spend it with your family, and just enjoy the end of 2022, because I think 2023 is going to be an awesome one for crypto, Hex, and for Crypto Sloth as a whole. All right, guys, take it easy. Peace out.